Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Buried in Paper, designed to help you get organized for maximum productivity. My name is Kathy Paauw, and I'll be your presenter. Today, I look forward to sharing a powerful and inexpensive productivity tool, as well as a process that will help you make quicker decisions about what to do with the many things that come flying into your busy life daily. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items to cover. First, today's webinar will be available on demand for replay and is accessible through the same link you're using now. Toward the end of this webinar, you'll receive the access link to some webinar notes, along with a special offer. Next, I'd love to hear from you during or after today's presentation. If you have questions or comments, please type it in the text box in the lower right corner of your screen. I'll be in touch soon to respond. And last, as you think of others who may benefit from what you learned today, I encourage you to share today's webinar with your social networks. A quick introduction in case we haven't met before. I've been at the helm of my own coaching and consulting practice, Powerfully Organized, since 1995. In 1999, I received my certification as a business and personal coach. Today, I refer to myself as a life architect, helping busy professionals create blueprints for purposeful and productive lives. One of the most common things I hear people say these days is that they feel overwhelmed with everything on their to-do list. There are only so many sticky notes that your brain can manage before you feel like things are spinning out of control. If you feel this way, you're not alone. The vast majority of professionals I talk with feel overwhelmed on a regular basis, and it really takes its toll, especially on their personal relationships and their health. I started teaching this webinar way back in 2003, when electronic information became so prevalent, I thought that paper would eventually become obsolete. But we all know that hasn't happened. When people find something important on the internet, what do they often do? They print it out. Paper production has doubled in the last decade. Since paper does not seem to be going away anytime soon, we may as well learn how to manage it. Now, if you're someone who does not have much paper in your life, the decision-making process I teach today will be just as applicable with electronic information as it is for paper, so stay tuned. Today, you'll learn a simple process that will help you to declutter your schedule, space, and mind so you can focus on what's most important to you and enjoy greater peace of mind. Once you implement this simple decision-making process, you'll be able to quickly find what you need when you need it, remember to do important follow-up at the appropriate time, and toss the rest. I've worked with people from many different walks of life, and I've discovered two things in common with almost everyone I work with. My clients are all very busy people who wish they had more time. They're also very gifted at what they do professionally, but typically struggle with effectively managing all the paper and electronic information they receive daily. I use the metaphor of an iceberg to describe the work of getting organized. The tip of the iceberg represents the physical environment that we can see, touch, and organize. And the part under the waterline, the biggest part of the iceberg, represents the mental part of being organized. It's important to get clear about your priorities so you can organize your thoughts, your energy, and your time around those priorities. I work with most clients as both an organizing consultant and a coach because I believe that organizing your physical environment without first clarifying your priorities is kind of like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Although we won't be focusing on what's under the waterline today, I invite you to begin with your priorities as a foundation to any work that you do to organize your physical environment. To lay the foundation for our discussion today, I'll share my definition of clutter. It goes like this: anything you own, possess, or do that does not enhance your life on a regular basis. To make good decisions, you must be clear about what's important and what's cluttering up your life. Clutter takes many forms, and often it's camouflaged to the point that you may not even recognize it as clutter. In addition to environmental clutter, it can also show up in the form of thoughts, activities, or even relationships in your life. Once you become more conscious of what's cluttering up your life, it'll be easier for you to make some values-based decisions that will keep you focused on your priorities and goals. Over the last decade, I've asked hundreds of people what causes them to create piles. I've found that there are two primary reasons. The number one reason given is a fear of never finding something once it's filed away. Procrastination is caused by not knowing where to put it or what to call it. Piles essentially represent postponed decisions. And the number two reason is a fear of forgetting to follow up on something that requires action. You may have a fear that if you put it away, out of sight, out of mind, you may forget to take the needed action, or you may not be able to find the support materials you need when you need them. I teach a proven step-by-step process that will help you to get and stay organized. It's easy to implement and easy to maintain. When you use this process consistently, and consistency is key, you will be able to find what you need when you need it, remember important follow-up at the appropriate time, improve your ability to prioritize, focus, and concentrate, control your workload instead of it controlling you, eliminate distracting clutter, reduce stress, increase your productivity by at least 20%, and that's a very conservative estimate, and eliminate that paper pileup forever. The process I'm about to share gives you an alternative to, I'll just set it here for now. And it also requires you to organize how you spend your time. We live in a world with many more choices than ever before, and it will only continue to get more complex. So how do we manage it all? Here's a simple process that will help you to streamline and prioritize the choices. Things come flying into our busy lives these days in one of 5 ways: paper, email, voicemail or text messages, verbal requests from others, and thoughts in your head about things that you need to do. The first item on this list is paper, but the other 4 are not in paper form. I suggest that you keep some 3x5 cards handy to jot down notes for the other 4 ways that things come into your life. I'll show you what to do with these 3x5 cards in a few minutes. For now, let's talk about what you'll put on the 3x5 cards. Let's say that you check your voicemail and there are 3 messages. You'll write down 1 message per 3x5 card. Do not put all 3 messages on 1 card. That's because there may be different priorities or time sensitivities for your follow-up with each message. Let's say the first message is someone calling to ask you for some information that you won't have until tomorrow. The next message is providing you with the address for a website that you'll need when you start working on a project next month. And the third message is urgent, and you need to call that person back right away. If you put all 3 messages on 1 card, you will not be able to do what I'm going to teach you in the next few minutes. If you need to take any action on an email, message, verbal request, or thought that pops into your head, write each one down on a separate 3x5 card. There are only 5 decisions that you can make. Think of a funnel. Everything enters the top of the funnel, and the volume gets smaller as you move down the funnel through the decision-making process. Give your full attention to the item that's in front of you, and then make one of these 5 decisions for each one. The first question you ask yourself is, can I discard this? If so, recycle, shred, or toss it. 80% of papers we file away are never referenced again. The second question, can I delegate this to someone else? The third question, do I need to do something with it right now? The fourth question, can I defer taking action until later? I'll show you in a few minutes what to do with this so that you remember to take the appropriate action later. And finally, the 5th question, do you simply want to file it away for future reference? No action required at this time. It's important that you ask yourself these 5 questions in this order. Why? Well, if you can throw it away, you won't need to consider the other 4 options. If you can delegate it, you won't need to consider the other 3 options. If it requires immediate action, you won't need to file it away for future follow-up or future reference. To keep this process simple, you'll need to gather all incoming items together in one place. I suggest setting up a stacking tray and containing all of it in an inbox. Incoming is where mail, messages, tasks, and ideas go until you have time to make decisions about what's in there. I also suggest having an outgoing tray, a place to put things that you're either putting in the mail or are giving to someone else, and a to-file tray, where you put things to be filed at a later time. Here are a few tips about setting up your stacking trays. Always label each tray, otherwise they just become a generic catch-all for paper piles. Store your to-file tray on the bottom so there's finite space for your filing and you'll be forced to do it more often. Most people do not like filing and they avoid doing it. If your to-file tray is on top, it can grow to the ceiling. I suggest that you schedule a weekly appointment on your calendar to carve out some administrative time for filing and other repetitive tasks that will help you to stay organized. You can put paper and even printed emails in your inbox. You can also put your 3x5 cards in the inbox, containing notes about voice or text messages you need to follow up on, verbal requests that you're either thinking about doing or have committed to doing, and thoughts in your head about things that require action. At least once a day, review the contents of your entire inbox, one item at a time, and make one of the 5 decisions about what to do next. Once you take something out of the inbox, you never ever put it back in there, because you're going to make one of 5 decisions. I don't know what to do with it is no longer an option. You either toss, delegate, do, defer, or file. Remember that indecision is a decision. And the more you can keep all of these action items in one system, the easier it is to manage. If you're applying this process to electronic information, such as email, you can follow the same methodology. Discard means delete. Delegate means forward. Do usually means hit reply and respond. Defer means that you need to come back to the email later to handle it. I've found a wonderful tool called Follow Up Then that helps me manage email that I want to be reminded to handle later. I'll include information about this wonderful program in the resource section of my notes, which you'll receive access to at the end of this webinar. And file means move it to a named electronic folder or move it to your archives. Now that I've given a quick overview on the 5 decisions, we'll review each one in greater detail. Before doing so, I want to emphasize the importance of making one of 5 decisions. Gone are the days of, I'll just set it here for now. That's how piles are born. You don't need more time. You simply need to decide. You either discard it, delegate it, do it now, file for future follow-up, or file for future reference. If you're not sure what to do with it, commit to using this new system. Decide when you will decide and put it in your Tickler file to decide then. The alternative of I'll just set it here for now is just a postponed decision that creates piles. At the end of each day, your inbox will be empty because you've done one of these things with each item. With email, your inbox should have very little in it if you're making decisions daily and you're deleting, forwarding, handling it now, deferring it, and using the reminder system I mentioned, or filing it somewhere other than your inbox. The first of the 5 questions you ask yourself is, can I throw this away? Tools you'll need for this step include a recycling bin, a garbage can, a shredder for documents containing sensitive information, and a giveaway box for things you no longer need that might be useful to someone else. The ability to identify environmental clutter and get rid of it is one of the most significant barriers to getting and staying organized. Some people have real trouble throwing things away. However, it's counterproductive to organize things that you should not be keeping in the first place. I'll share some of my favorite questions to ask, which will help you make good decisions as you tackle your piles of paper. What's the worst thing that could happen if I threw this away? If I threw this away now and discovered that I needed it later, could I fairly easily replace it? If so, and you're likely not to need it, why keep it? By the time I might need this, will it be obsolete? In this day and age, things become obsolete very fast, with newer information readily available to us. If my office or home burned down, would I miss this item or information enough that I would actively try to replace it? In most cases, out of sight, out of mind, you'd never even miss it. Does it have tax or legal implications? This is an important question to ask. And here's my favorite question. How will it enhance my life to keep this? If you cannot identify how something would enhance your life, and it does not have tax or legal benefits, do you still want to keep it? The second question you ask yourself is, can I delegate this to someone else? Tools needed for this include a delegation log for keeping track of what you've given to whom and when it's due by, human resources, in other words, people to delegate tasks to, and systems. I'll share an example of a system that I delegate to. It's a program called Time Trade that enables people to see my schedule and reserve a time that I have made available for certain types of appointments. The system schedules the appointment, which eliminates telephone, text, or email tag, or requiring an assistant to sort out busy schedules. I'll provide information about this system in the notes. Anyone who makes appointments as part of their work needs to know about this wonderful tool. Every busy professional I know has more on their plate than they can possibly ever complete by themselves. Think of juggling a bunch of balls in the air. If you have more than you can juggle, you will drop some of them. Would you rather drop them because you cannot handle them all? Or would you rather effectively toss or delegate them to someone else who can do an adequate job? As you're considering what you might delegate to someone else, ask yourself these two questions. Am I the best person to do this job? As much as possible, work on the things that only you can do. And am I passionate about this work? Even if you do something better than anyone else, if you don't enjoy it, is there some way to delegate it to someone else who can do an adequate job? I encourage you to delegate things at home and in your work life as much as possible, so you have time to focus on the things that you love most and are best at doing. If you're not in a position to hire someone to do something you don't enjoy or not good at doing, consider bartering with someone else. For example, let's say that you hate doing yard work, but you love to paint. A friend loves working in the yard and wants a room in her house painted, but hates to paint. You and your friend can barter, and both of you get to help the other while doing something you enjoy. Or let's say you're great with graphic design, but don't like to write. Can you barter with another business professional you know who is an excellent writer? Perhaps they need graphic design work, and they can edit your written material. Get creative. I'll include in my notes the link to a blog that has some great ideas about ways to barter. The third decision is to take immediate action. If it's something that can be done within 2 minutes or less, and you're able to do so, do it now. This might be something that simply needs a signature or a quick email giving approval. Be careful not to start working on things that take longer than a couple minutes to do, unless it's a top priority for you right now, as you're likely to get distracted and lose momentum on other things that are a priority. It's not the tigers that eat us alive, it's the gnats. All of those daily to-dos can quickly become a bunch of little pesky gnats that can eat us alive. Before we know it, the day is about to end, and an important project didn't get done. One question that I've found to be really helpful is to ask myself, why am I doing what I'm doing right now? If you're clear about your priorities, you'll be most productive when you stay focused on activities that are moving you toward accomplishing your goals. The fourth decision is to determine if you want to defer taking action. In this case, you need to ask yourself two questions. What's the next action I need to take, and when will I do it? In this case, you will file an item for future follow-up in your Tickler file. Here's a picture of one. Let's review the materials you'll need to have on hand to set this up. You'll need an accordion Tickler file with 43 built-in tabs, 1 through 31 for the current days of the month, and January through December for each month of the year. Behind the accordion file are some hanging files with plastic label tabs. These are for your repetitive action files, for things that may not be date sensitive. You'll also need a desktop file frame or an empty desk drawer to contain your Tickler file system. You never want to store your accordion file flat. You want to stand it up either in a desktop file frame or a drawer, along with your customized hanging files, which are the red files pictured here. As you go through the piles on your desk, when you get to the items that require you to take action, but you don't need to do it right now, you can place it in your Tickler file for when you'll take the next action. Some items will be date sensitive, like tickets to an event you plan to attend, and some will be repetitive actions that you need to take, like paying monthly bills. It's helpful to keep a 12-month calendar near your Tickler file so you can see what day of the week a date falls on. Let's say that you want to follow up on the last Monday of the month. A quick glance at the calendar will tell you what date that is, so you make sure to put it behind the correct numbered tab. At the end of each month, you'll need to move the things behind the tab for the next month forward into the 1 through 31 tabs, so the daily tabs always reflect the current month. For example, the end of April, you'll take everything out of the May tab and decide what date during the month of May to follow up with each item, so you can place it behind the correct dated tab. As you can see in the picture on the right, the bottom of the accordion file can really expand. I much prefer the Smeed brand because it has no sides to limit the amount of expansion. The Smeed accordion file is much more friendly to use than what most office supply stores carry. I do not recommend the rust-colored ones with the sides and the flip-over top. In the notes you'll receive access to at the end of this webinar, I'll provide a link to all of the materials you'll need so that you can order them on Amazon today. You'll also want to create some customized action files. I encourage you to do this sparingly, as they are not date sensitive and can be easily forgotten for follow-up. As much as possible, you want to use verbs, since these are actions that you'll be taking. Here are some popular tabs to create. Pay is the place to put your bills until they're paid. Expense reimbursement. If you get reimbursed by an employer for out-of-pocket expenses, this file provides a place for storing the receipts until you fill out and submit the reimbursement form. Some of my clients have lost thousands of dollars because they could not find the receipts, so they never submitted them for reimbursement. Data entry for contacts. This is a place to put business cards and notes containing contact information that needs to be entered into whatever contact management program you use. If you have the luxury of an assistant, you can periodically give this file to your helper to do the data entry for you. Data entry for financial records. This is a place for business owners to put income and expense information to be added into whatever financial management software you may use, such as QuickBooks. If you don't have your own business, this may not be necessary unless you keep budget information on your computer. Data entry for donations. If you make many cash or in-kind donations and you itemize this on your tax returns, you may be able to receive a substantial deduction. In order to be eligible for this, you must keep good records. I love using It's Deductible to keep track of all of this. Again, there will be information about this free program in the notes. Discuss. This is labeled with the name of a person you meet with regularly. You can use this folder to put materials or reminder notes in, so when you have the meeting, you have everything you need in one place. For example, if you have a weekly meeting with your boss, have a file with his or her name on it, and throughout the week, place notes in there about things you want to remember to discuss during your meeting. Also, have a discuss file for each person who reports to you. When I implemented this, it saved me and my administrative assistant a lot of interrupted time. Instead of interrupting her each time I had something to delegate, I put a note in my folder for her, and we had a quick meeting at the start of each day. I gave most things to her that way. Of course, if it was time sensitive and could not wait, I interrupted her, but otherwise it went into her discuss folder for me to delegate to her the next morning. Meetings. This is labeled with the name of the group or committee that you meet with regularly. In this folder you put agendas, support materials, or notes to yourself about something you want to discuss at an upcoming meeting. Waiting to hear. This is a great place to put things when you're waiting to hear from someone else. Make a note in your calendar to check this file at least weekly so things don't slip through the cracks or get forgotten about if the person does not get back to you. If something is date sensitive, rather than using the waiting to hear folder, I suggest that you put the item in the dated part of your Tickler file system so that you can remember to heighten efforts to hear back from them before the deadline. If you're concerned about forgetting to check your repetitive action files, such as pay, expense reimbursement, or waiting to hear, identify when you want to do this activity and then add a reminder to your calendar. If you use an electronic calendar, you can create a repetitive action reminder. For example, if you want to be reminded on the last Wednesday of every month to turn in your expense reimbursement form on the last Friday of the month, enter a repetitive reminder in your calendar for that. This will jog your memory to check these non-dated Tickler files. If you use a paper calendar, you can put a 3x5 card in the dated part of the Tickler file that reminds you to check a custom Tickler file. For example, if you think you may forget to pay your bills, you can decide when and how often you want to pay them. Let's say that you decide to pay bills on the 10th and 25th of every month. You can put a recurring reminder on a 3x5 card in your Tickler file for the 10th and another one on the 25th. Both 3x5 cards would say, Pay Bills. As soon as you see the reminder, you put the card back in the Tickler file for the next month. There's one file that I did not mention in the previous list, and that's a to-read file. I do not recommend creating a to-read customized file because it's very easy to put things in there and never take them out. I've learned that I really have two types of reading, essential and non-essential reading. I put my essential reading materials in my Tickler for the date that I plan to read it, and then I carve out the time to do it on that date. Often I'll look for dates when I know that I'll have idle time to read, like when I'm traveling on an airplane or public transportation, or when I have an appointment and I know there's usually idle time when I'm in the waiting room. For non-essential reading, I have a reading basket. If I do not get around to reading the materials in there within a few months, I toss them or donate them. Separating things out like this has really helped me manage my reading much better than before, when it was all in one folder. If you find that you're subscribed to things that you never read, I suggest that you unsubscribe. Examples of some of the kinds of things that you can put in the dated part of your Tickler file include invitations to events or directions for how to get there, tickets to special events such as concerts, games, and plays. You can store the tickets in the month or the date tab for the event. Travel documentation like airline tickets, hotel and rental car reservations, and passports if you're traveling internationally. You can create a travel file and store it on the date of travel. If you're booking a trip several months in advance, store the file in the correct month. Then, when you get to that month, move it to the date in that month when you'll travel. Claim stubs for things you'll be picking up, such as dry cleaning or repaired items. You want to store these not for the date when it's ready to be picked up, but for when you can pick it up. RSVPs and registrations that need to be sent. I suggest that you store these kinds of things on the date that you plan to fill it out and submit it. Or let's say that you get a conference brochure in the mail for something 6 months from now, and you haven't decided if you'll attend. In this case, ask yourself when you want to decide, and put the conference brochure in your Tickler for then. This will remind you to decide so you can either register or toss it. Date-sensitive phone calls and other to-dos that need to be done on a certain day. Support materials for a meeting or appointment. Store this on the date that you will take the next action. If you need to review it or do something else before the meeting, store it for that date. If you just want to remember to take the materials with you, store it on the date of the meeting. Birthday cards. You can buy them ahead and store them on the mailing date so that you get it in the mail on time. Since I mentioned birthday cards, I'll also share an internet-based tool that has made it super easy to send birthday cards on time. This system allows you to stay in touch with important people in a highly personal way, utilizing the convenience of your computer, tablet, or handheld device to send a real card in the mail. I used to go to the card store and pay $4 or $5 per card, plus I had to hunt up a stamp and the address and get it to the post office. With this system, I never have to leave my home or office, and I can send a real card and even add a gift if I wish with the simple click of a mouse. This high-tech tool offers the ability to make my cards much more personal than what I used to get at the card shop, because I can also add my own photos into the design of the card, and I can even use my own handwriting font and signature before my personalized message gets printed and mailed for me. Best of all, the card only costs $1.17, plus a regular stamp, and that includes someone else doing all the labor in addressing, stuffing, licking, stamping, and taking it to the post office for me. This is one of my favorite productivity tools. It has a built-in reminder for important dates like birthdays and anniversaries, so you never forget. Using this system has helped me do a better job of expressing appreciation and encouragement and staying in touch with clients, prospects, referral partners, friends, and family. I liked it so much that I became a distributor. I invite you to test drive this system by going to connectwithkathy.com and reserving a time on my calendar that works for you. I'll help you send a free card to someone who needs to hear from you, and you can experience how easy it is to use. A little side note, when you go to connectwithkathy.com, you'll see how the scheduling tool works that I mentioned earlier when we were talking about delegation, and I mentioned the time trade system. You'll find more information about both of these in the downloadable notes that I'll provide the link for near the end of this webinar. If you're a business owner or independent professional who has an interest in attracting repeat and referral business, I invite you to check out 2 additional free resources that I offer. My free relationship marketing webinar, which you can register for at orgcoach.net/relationship-marketing, and my free ebook, 7 Secrets to Fabulous Follow-Up, which you can access by visiting orgcoach.net/7secrets. Now let's get back to the Tickler file system. The Tickler file will help you remember important follow-up. In order for it to work, you have to do 2 things consistently: put things in and take things out. So let's review an essential process for effectively using your Tickler system daily. At the end of your workday, take everything out of your Tickler file tab that is dated for tomorrow. Spread everything out on your desk so that you can see it. Review your calendar for tomorrow for any appointments and projects you've already reserved time for. Sort your action items for tomorrow by order of importance or time sensitivity. Create an ordered pile of tomorrow's tasks so the first thing of the day is on top. Place your action items, in priority order, in a folder labeled Today. I suggest using a colorful folder that's a different color than anything else on your desk so that it's easy to find if it gets buried. One important note with this process: if you call people who are in a different time zone, you need to keep this in mind when you're ordering your tasks for the day. For example, I'm on the West Coast, and if I'm calling someone on the East Coast, they're 3 hours ahead of me. So if their workday ends at 5 p.m., that's 2 p.m. for me. I need to remember this if I want to reach someone on the East Coast later in the day before they go home. As you're reviewing your tasks for tomorrow, if you see that there is no way that you'll be able to get to all of it, you can reallocate the least important tasks to another date, or you can delegate them to others if they're time sensitive and you know you will not be able to get to them before the deadline. Tomorrow morning when you come into your office, your Today folder will be waiting for you with your tasks for the day in order of priority. Take the first one out and do it, then the second, etc. And focus on one task at a time. We've spent a lot of time on the first 4 decisions. The 5th decision is simply to file something away for future reference. Remember the number 1 reason why people pile? A fear of never finding it again once it's filed away. You must have complete confidence that you'll be able to find what you file, or you'll be reluctant to put it away. The problem is what to call the file so that you can find it later. The solution I've found is to have a file index for cross-referencing a file by different names or keywords. I've found a powerful indexing system that allows you and others to find anything you file or store in 5 seconds or less. Although I've always been really organized, when it came to filing, I had a system that looked nice, but I could not find things in my filing system because I couldn't remember where I put it or what I called it. And if someone else filed or stored something, it was even more difficult for me to find. All of that changed in 1996 when I was introduced to a system that really works and does not break down over time. It's called the Paper Tiger. By implementing the system I use and I teach others to use, you can easily save 150 hours or more each year by eliminating the time-consuming task of looking for lost information. I have used the same system for over 20 years now, and it enables me to find anything I file or store in just a few seconds, and not just paper, but anything I store in my home or office. I'd like to share what Floyd Green, a happy client, had to say about using the Paper Tiger. He said, "I've used the Paper Tiger over the years and am evangelistic about its value. In May of 1995, I was in a serious accident when a drunk driver hit me while I was riding my bicycle. My skull was fractured and I suffered brain injuries in the area of the brain that affects executive functioning. As a result, I experienced panic reactions when interrupted, when there was clutter, or when my ability to focus was broken. During the next 6.5 years, my very survival depended on having a degree of order around me. I'm telling you this because I am living proof that the organizing and time management principles you provide really work. Thanks." It's stories like this that make me love what I do. If you'd like to learn more about this finding system and see how it works, I invite you to register for my free webinar, Find Anything in 5 Seconds or Less, by visiting my website at orgcoach.net and clicking on the Resources menu, where you'll see my other webinars listed. Okay, so let's wrap up by talking about some new habits you'll need to form in order to get the most out of what you've learned today. First, you'll need to get in the habit of processing the contents of your inbox only once by choosing one of the 5 decisions I've taught you: toss, delegate, do it now, do it later, and when, or file for future reference. You never put things back in your inbox. Check your Tickler file at the same time each day. I suggest that you add a daily Check Tickler reminder to your calendar for the first 30 days. Keep your Tickler file in a place where you'll see it and it's easy to access. If you use a desktop file frame, be sure it's at least 8 inches deep, or you will not have enough room for expansion of your Tickler file as you add paper. Remember, it can expand quite a bit. These are not generally stocked in the major office supply stores, so I share a link to the Smeed Tickler file on Amazon in the notes. Keep a calendar nearby so that you can make sure and put your items requiring future action in the right dated tab in your Tickler file. If you work in a different place than you live, I suggest that you set up a Tickler system for work and one for home. A combined Tickler usually works well in a home office. I do not recommend sharing a Tickler system with someone else. Other members of your family or staff need to have their own Tickler systems. If you travel a lot, create some travel files for processing paper on the road. Once you're clear about when you're going to do something, you need to set aside time to do it. I highly recommend that you spend an hour a week planning for your coming week so you can block out time in your schedule for the things requiring action and follow-up. This planning time is one of the most important hours of the whole week. While you're doing this, review what you've put in your Tickler file for the week coming up and schedule some protected time for projects you need uninterrupted time to work on. During these times, you may consider silencing your cell phone, working somewhere besides your office, or if you decide to work in your office, I suggest putting up a sign that you're working on a project and do not want to be interrupted unless the building's on fire, and when you will next be available. Finally, I suggest that you schedule time for important activities that are not urgent. If you don't schedule these things, such as exercise, planning, and relationship building activities, they probably won't happen, because all of the other urgent things will crowd them out. If you need help with managing your time, you may want to check out another free webinar I offer called Managing Priorities. In closing, let's review the productivity tools we just talked about. I've mentioned a decision-making process with 5 decisions you can make on anything that comes into your life. I taught you how to set up a reminder system using either a Tickler file, your calendar, or programs like Follow Up Then for your email. I briefly mentioned an excellent filing and finding system using the Paper Tiger, and I also mentioned the importance of incorporating a weekly planning process into your life. When all of these are implemented together, you'll be more productive. When you work more productively, your profits will increase, your clients will be happier, and you will enjoy much more peace of mind in your day-to-day operations. I promised that I would share a special offer with those who stayed on this webinar to the end. With the never-ending supply of information flowing into your life, both personally and professionally, it can be difficult to take control. I'd love to help you get organized so you can finally live the life you want to live, as opposed to reacting to the chaotic world around you. Even if you're already super organized, if your life is not moving in a direction that feels fulfilling to you, and you would like support to change that, let's set up a no-cost 30-minute discovery call to help you get moving in a positive and productive direction. Here are some things I can help you with. Perhaps you'd like to get organized and increase overall productivity. Find ways to enjoy greater fulfillment and balance in your work and personal life. Receive help navigating something big, such as a change in career, marital status, family change, or retirement. Start a business or take an existing business to the next level. Improve your health and relationships. Get support and encouragement as you work toward achieving a big goal. Or perhaps you have another burning issue you'd like support addressing. During our call, we'll talk about your vision for success. We'll uncover hidden challenges that may sabotage your success, and we'll identify next steps that you can take to create your blueprint for getting you from where you are to where you want to be. To schedule this, go to orgcoach.net/schedule and reserve a time that works for us to speak by phone or Skype. And last but not least, I promise to provide you with a link to the handout that will help you to recap all that we've covered today. This document also includes links to recommended resources, tools, and information that I've mentioned during our time together. To access this, please visit orgcoach.net/buried-in-paper handout. My greatest joy is to empower and equip others to live the life of freedom and fulfillment they desire. I look forward to providing you with tools and processes to organize your entire life so your environment and lifestyle reflect your values and passions. I invite you to schedule your private, no-cost call with me today, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.